I hope everyone is having a great day so far and everyone had a good lunch to get them prepared for the exciting discussion we're going to have on the 19C database upgrade. So we're going to have we're going to get through and do a little bit of housekeeping ourselves about the presenters. So I have with me here today over the telephone in the world of the pandemic that we live in, our Director of DBA Services here at Tier1, Geordie Coates. And Geordie and I are going to be having a discussion around 19C database upgrades and kind of what to look out for and what it means to you guys on the phone. My name is Craig Krouse. I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer here at Tier1. My role is the delivery of all of our services here at Tier1, whether they be private cloud hosting, project work, or support work, whether that's Oracle, Oracle E-Business Suite, or Oracle Hyperion products. And I wanted to take a quick minute to thank everyone for carving out time today to have this conversation. Please use the chat, ask questions as they come up, and we have a section carved out at the end of this where we can address those. So the Tier 1 overview is what we're going to be talking about next, and then we're going to jump into pre-submitted questions. So for those of you on the phone, thank you for submitting your questions about topics you'd like for us to dive a little deeper into as we get into the wonderful world of the Oracle database. I think we have, let me see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, around 7 or 8 questions that we're going to cover. But like I said, as we get through these, please feel free to add more to the chat box, and Marissa will complete an inventory of those, and we'll tack those one at a time as we get toward the end. Okay, so the Tier 1 overview. Who are we? What do we do? So Tier 1, we are a professional services firm focused on the Oracle line of products. And when I say line of products, I mean Oracle E-Business Suite, Oracle Database, Oracle Hyperion, OBIEE, OBIA, which is a business intelligence analytics tool. And we've been doing it as our sole focus for the last 17 years. So Tier1 celebrated our 17th birthday here this past spring. And with that, it shows the dedication that our folks have to Tier1. We have folks here with a minimum of 10 plus years of experience, which means a lot of the folks have been here close to the beginning of the company. And we're continually adding fresh faces into the mix to bring expertise into the needed areas of what we provide support and project delivery in. We are a total life cycle firm, meaning we can do not only implementations, but we can provide you support along the way. And when it's time to do an upgrade, we're your partner as well as we embark on those journeys together. While we've been successful, a lot of activity on this chart, so we're going to go ahead and start at the top left and work our way around. Not too big, not too small. Probably for those of you who've done the research, you've noticed that Tier1 does not have the naming rights to any stadiums or sponsor any major sporting events. So we survive mainly based on our ability to turn our customers into references. So although we are not the size of what you might refer to as the Big Four, we have the technical expertise to deliver on all of the Oracle products that I mentioned earlier. Moving over to the right, the individualized approach icon there with the hand with the gears. Every engagement we put together here at Tier1 is focused solely on our customers' needs. So what does that truly mean is we personalize our solutions around your needs. Our senior executives are involved in every step. So here you are talking with a COO to have a conversation with our Director of DBA Services. It's great for webinars and presentations, but I'm also engaged in our project work and support work, maintaining the relationships with our customers so we can stay on top of what their roadmap looks like and how we can help them achieve their objectives. At the bottom left corner there, you'll see our employee retention. So I talked about Tier1 being 17 and a half years old now, and how our folks with 10 plus years of experience have been along for most of that journey. One of the things we're very proud of is looking at that metric. Over a third of the people at Tier1, not only do they have their 10 years plus of experience in their respective practice areas, they've been with Tier1 for 10 years as well. So myself included, have a little gray around the temples, but yes, a lot of our folks have gone through the multiple iterations of EBS in its infancy, all the way back from 10.6 up to where we are now with 12.2.9 with plans for Oracle to release the 12.2.10 patch set this fall. And then in the center there, and I guess I saved that for last, is because it's something that our CEO is very, very proud of, and that is our customer retention of 90% since inception. Which leads us to our core values. How have we been successful over the last 17 years? And it's really by identifying our focus, which is that of Oracle, and identifying the core values that we bring to the table in delivering our services. And core values, a lot of folks have them, but we went about delivering ours or identifying them maybe a little bit differently than some of the other players in the area. Is we looked back over the course of Tier 1 and identified those folks who have contributed to the success of Tier 1 and said, what are the values? What are the traits that they have that made us successful? And we took that big list and we boiled it down to the 4 that we have on the page here. They are fanatically focused on customer success, committed to the success of Tier 1, invested in continuous improvement and growth, and no jerks. So fanatically focused on customer success. We are a professional services firm. Our product that we deliver is our expertise. And that expertise is delivered through recruiting and obtaining Oracle experts. Oracle experts primarily who have the focus of understanding the importance of making our customers successful. So a core value that we put at the top is that our folks must be focused, fanatically focused on our customer success. In addition to that, they must be committed to the success of Tier 1. And really, by adhering to our first core value, the second one really comes along for the ride, but it's really important. We have, on many opportunities, went the extra mile on behalf of our customers just to do the right thing to make sure they were successful. The third one, invested in the continuous growth of Tier 1. Based on the age of the company and based on the age of our resources from an experience perspective, they've all had to continually learn new skills along the way, come up to speed on the technical changes that have occurred throughout the life cycle of Oracle. So if you heard me say 10.6, they went from 10.6 into 11i, into 5.9 or 5.8, 5.9, 10, release 12, 12.1.3, and then the various flavors of 12.2. From a database perspective, I personally remember back the version 8 of the database and the different flavors in between, as well as where we are now talking about 19C. So the ability of our folks to continually learn demonstrates the core value of the investment in the continuous improvement and growth. And then the last policy, no jerks, really I think speaks for itself, is that you could have some exceptionally strong individuals technically and from within their expertise, but if they're not team players and they're not focused on customer success, then there's no room for them here at Tier 1. What does all that mean is that we leverage these 4 core values when we recruit and when we reward our resources, as well as lean on those heavily to deliver our mission statement, which is to help customers sleep at night by providing our personalized support, hosting, and project services to their critical Oracle business applications. So I know that's kind of a long-winded who we are, but I think it's very important for you to know who you're talking with today when we talk about the database. With that said, that's going to take us to our list of pre-submitted questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these questions and I'm going to kind of toss them over to the Geordie, and we're going to go through and answer them. And as you have questions, please throw them in the chat box. I want to hear what you guys are thinking so we can address them at the end. So Geordie, one of the biggest questions that I hear when I'm out talking with customers is why should I upgrade?
Great. Well, thanks, Craig. Great introduction, and I appreciate it. I think the primary reason a lot of people should perform their upgrade is obviously, maintain the support without additional expense. You want to stay supported without having to pay these extended support fees. We all know Oracle is great for driving out at you. So for customers running on eBusiness Suite 11.204, you still have a few more months left until the end of December 2020, where the fee has been waived for EBS customers. And additionally, on 12.1.02, you've got until July 2022. So especially those still on 11.204, you can still get your upgrade done or started or kicked off in time to avoid the fees, hopefully, and and stay in a heavily supported environment. Also, looking to your operating systems, your platforms, you're looking at your operating system and platforms, there's always areas for improvement. A lot of the older Oracle database versions aren't necessarily supported or certified on some of the newer operating systems. So you haven't been able to actually upgrade your database, so having to take a look at your infrastructure, your OS, your platforms. So if your database has been holding you back from getting onto a newer OS and newer hardware, now might be the time to promote, updating everything. Now, this allows you to get the opportunity to take advantage of new server, operating system, database features, kind of get it all done in one fell swoop. One of the other big advantages to an upgrade is across the board staying current, ensures you to stay on top of all your key security enhancements, everything from the operating system to the infrastructure to the databases. Every one of these promotes current security updates and enhancements. So another great way to stay on top of those. So Oracle was well known for what they did with 19C. Their biggest focus from Oracle development was heavily on fixing known issues. Rather than just adding new functionality, the core team was heavily focused on stability of 19C. Extensive testing, thousands of bugs fixed, while analyzing all aspects of performance and functionality just to maintain a very stable environment that can stay supported for a longer period of time.
Okay, thank you, Geordie. Why don't we go on to the next question? And again, folks, if you hear anything that you want to dig deeper into, please fill in the chat box. Next question we have is, 19C seems like it's pretty straightforward. It's just another database upgrades. But what are the big changes that really want to motivate me here, Geordie?
All right, starting in the upper left-hand corner, the mandatory multi-tenant configuration. Multi-tenant architecture was released in 12C, but EBS didn't have to adopt it at that point. Now, you don't have a choice. It is no longer an option, but it is a mandatory requirement to have your e-business suite as a pluggable database with 19C and a multi-tenant configuration. Continuing clockwise around, UTL file dir is no longer supported as defined within the initialization parameters. You also define your UTL file directories and the init parameters, no longer supported. And we'll discuss that a little bit more on upcoming slides. In the bottom right, keep an eye out on your architecture and platform. If you're sitting on older, we kind of mentioned this earlier, if you're sitting on older hardware or OSs, now is probably the right time to consider a refresh. As you may need to be on newer versions to support 19C, it has been a pretty consistent change we have seen for most of our clients doing upgrades, is that they've had to accommodate new hardware or software updates. So it's one of those areas you really need to take into consideration and make sure you understand. As far as new features, honestly, while there are a few new features, it's not as prevalent for Oracle e-business suite. And again, Oracle's focus was heavily guided towards stability and supportability for the long term. So, up to 2023, then potentially up to 2026 with extended support. So that was their key focus with regards to the changes in 19C.
Awesome, Geordie. So that perfect segue into the next one. And, we talked about it just kind of high level there, but really, what does multi-tenancy mean for EBS here in 19C?
Oh, Craig, for 19C, Oracle EBS is run as a single pluggable database in a container database architecture, a one-to-one. Oracle's future guidance, starting with 20C, is to no longer support non-CDB environments, so non-container database environments. So pretty much EBS is just making the changes mandatory now, so you're already going to be ahead of the curve by being a pluggable database. Personally, I think one of the biggest values of going multi-tenant, hopefully, is that it's a stepping stone to being able to consolidate and provide management efficiencies in the future when Oracle hopefully supports multiple PDBs in a single CDB for EBS. It's not there yet, but I'm hoping that Oracle will drive it down there at some point. Also, and not to worry, at this time, you don't have to require any additional licensing to go to 19C and adopt the multi-tenant architecture. Some other key changes that you'll kind of see as a result of going to a pluggable multi-tenant environment is how you connect or source your environments. You might notice as it changes a little bit is you now have a CDB and a PDB, and you are no longer connecting using database SIDs, but now only services. For example, you source the CDB to perform many activities, including OPatch, data patch, connecting to the PDB assist DBA, opening and closing your database, and gathering information specific issues pertaining to the PDB is actually done through the container database. Tasks specific to the eBusiness Suite, including things like running autoconfig, apps patching, running the EBS technology code checkers, and many of the other apps administrating type tasks, require you to source the PDB environment directly. On the cloning front, generally speaking, EBS cloning does follow much of the standard rapid clone process as it has in the past. But when it comes to creating like the new databases, it's a little bit more manual with the creation of a new context file specific to the multi-tenant configuration, how to rename the PDB, and changes required to accommodate UTL file dir objects. And kind of the last one on this page is just something I was a little bit more curious about. As much as it would be nice to just be able to have, hey, I've got multiple CDB, multi-tenant environments, to be able to just take the EBS pluggable database and take it from one multi-tenant environment and plug it into another. Unfortunately, at this point, it's not there, so you can't just take the PDB and move it from A to B, but hopefully that's another one of those goals that maybe Oracle's going to get to down the road that will make it easier for moving your EBS pluggable databases around.
Okay, Geordie, I think we have another leading question there on the next slide is, what are the changes in the util file directory that our folks need to be aware of when they embark on an 18C upgrade?
So I'll give a little bit of history here. So as most are familiar with, prior to the 18C, so 11.2 earlier versions, the UTL file package was used to read and write various debug, temp, log, output files generated by the eBusiness Suite. And these directories were defined using UTL file database initialization parameter, just pointing to a location on your file systems. In 18C, that parameter was desupported, having been replaced by database directory objects, which provided an alias in the database for those directories on the server file system. So the advantage of directory objects provides the ability to make immediate changes without a database restart, along with additional control over privileges, assignments, granting roles, and permissions. In addition, the big change that occurred with 19C, release 3, is a call to the UTL package can specify either a directory object or a physical directory path. So it's not just an alias, but an actual physical directory path. So as part of 19C, so a lot of people are coming from 11.204 to 19C, in an effort to help ease the transition to 19C and adopt the new UTL file dir changes, Oracle created a utility, txk config util file dir, and there's a mouthful, to migrate and update your previous UTL file dir database initialization parameter settings to the new parameters. So it's not one of these big things where you're going to have to go out and look and go, well, I'm going to have to figure this out and understand how to do this and make sure I cover all this. This package now does a lot of that work for you, so it becomes a little bit more seamless and not quite so painful as part of the upgrade process. Because I think when Oracle mentioned this, they scared people a little bit, going, oh no, this is big changes. I have to worry about my customizations or where things are and adopt this. But Oracle has made it significantly easier with this package, and we've proven it has not been a problem with our upgrades.
Okay, moving on. Speaking of the word upgrade, how do I get to 19C? What are the upgrade paths from a direct upgrade? And I know some folks out there that isn't represented on here, Geordie, they're on 11, maybe they're on an earlier version, let's say 11.203. How do they get to 19C?
So if you're on another version, there's a couple of approaches you can take. So one of the main approach might be just upgrade to one of these terminal releases, or upgrade to 11.204 or 12.102, 12.201, or 18C, so that you have a direct path to 19C. One other option that you can consider is, especially if you're doing a platform change or something else, go straight from your source into a 19C target, kind of do an export-import approach into the 19C target and go straight into the upgrade that way. So, but these are the direct path upgrades as they are right now. 19.8 is the latest release update as of July 2020. So that's the most one. So you get to 19C, then you go to 19.8. And we've been asked a few times on this one is that, hey, can we get to 19C on 11i? And we're going, oh, there's still people out there on 11i? Yep, there are still quite a few people, surprisingly, on 11i. There is no path right now or supported release to run 11i on 19C. So just aware of that. Another question somebody asked is a little bit off from this is that, what about the change of versioning to 1819C? Why did Oracle kind of do this, go 1819C? Why didn't they stick through this whole numbering sequence? Why didn't we make it 13, 13.1, 13.203, whatever? So Oracle's goal for going to the 1819 naming convention was to try and drive a consistent release schedule while providing smaller features, bugs, security updates more frequently instead of every few years. I mean, if we look back at 11.204, they might not have another patch for a couple of years. Now they've gone, and as well, they've gone from bundle patches and patch set updates to release updates and release update revisions, and they're releasing those quarterly in line with the critical patch update release schedule. So more frequent updates in hopes that they're smaller, more frequent, and you get a lot of the fixes in security and updates more consistently.
Okay, thank you, Geordie. And then I guess the next question, it's pretty big. What does an upgrade look like? I know we got a lot of things here, but I think folks need to understand this isn't just run a script and you're on 19C. So let's talk about this some more. Tell us what an upgrade looks like.
So these 7 steps, although are still probably it's a simplification of what it really takes, but just kind of high level. These are kind of the 7 steps we followed to do this upgrade. Number 1, really need to verify your environment and kind of document everything. Make sure your platform configurations are certified. It can support the effort. You want to run some health checks. Verify your software versions at the right levels. Read all the collateral. There's a lot of it out there, and document the entire process. Kind of step 2. Well, here's where you kick it off. Install the 19.3 and latest 19.8, these currently release updates in a new Oracle home. And that's where you create the CDB, the container database. Third step, perform the required conditional steps and then run your database upgrade assistant to upgrade your database. Fourth step, you've done database upgrade. Now you run all the post-upgrade administrative tasks, all the things you do, 80 grants, compile invalids, gather stats, that type of thing. And then you go on, and this is where number 5, you create your multi-tenant environment. This is where it truly becomes a multi-tenant environment, and you convert your non-container database, which is the eBusiness Suite environment, to a pluggable database. Then update your initialization parameters that you need for 19C, run auto-config, start up your application, and away you go. And then afterwards, you update all your documentation for all the steps you've just done, and rinse, wash, repeat. Do it again. But these are all your steps for an upgrade process.
Okay, Geordie, thank you. And then let's move on to, I think we've got 2 more questions that I have written down here. 19C, the database features. What are they specifically in regards to EBS?
So Oracle has always been a little bit behind in certifying features with, the database comes out, then when they start certifying the features with eBusiness Suite is usually considerably late. I mean, even up until several months ago, disaster recovery wasn't even supported with 19C, I think, beginning of the year time frame. So these currently are all of the certified Oracle products features right now, based on a couple weeks ago, I think. I don't think too many of them changed. So advanced compression, advanced networking option, connection manager, data guard. So these are the ones that are currently certified with eBusiness Suite. And then there was a few of them that got deprecated. Oracle didn't want to support them any longer on 19C with eBusiness Suite. So again, we just kind of track some of the enterprise data warehouse and demand signal, enterprise planning and budgeting, and Oracle Business Integrated SOA Gateway are no longer supported with eBusiness Suite in 19C. So just thought we'd put them out there so you can see them instead of having to go gather them all on your own.
Okay, Geordie. And then I think the last, but I think the big question that folks really want to understand is, what lessons have we learned by undertaking these 19C database upgrades?
Okay, so I'll start with the top center, validating your source prior, but Tier 1 has been engaged with considerable amount of 19C upgrades on various releases. A lot of them have been 11.204 to 19C, so the big hurdle jumps and stuff like that, and 11.203. So we've been engaged in quite a few 19C upgrades with a lot more kind of coming down the pipe right now. But so these are kind of some of the high level lessons that we've learned as performing some of these upgrades. And as obvious as this may sound, make sure your source environment is actually functioning as expected. So when you start this upgrade process, is the source running right? So you've copied it to dev, is it running effectively? It makes it easier to determine if the upgrade caused an issue or if you've already an issue to start with. Something missed or overlooked during the clone or something that has worked in the past that is no longer working in the environment can cause you hours, if not days, trying to determine if the issue was caused by the upgrade or had the issue always been there and you just didn't know it. Continuing clockwise around, spend time researching all the patches, updates, changes. There is a lot of documentation out there. Take your time going through and understanding all the documentation in advance. Like all things Oracle, there's a lot of documentation. Some of it's relevant, some of it may not. Some of it may not be specific to what you need to worry about. But good practice, actually understand it all, see where your gaps are. So do your research before kicking off this substantial effort. Earlier versions, every time we've done this, you might have missed something. So continuing down, plan enough time for the entire project. Depending upon the volume and availability of resources for testing, your DBAs, your support team, just plan enough time. Infrastructure guys might have to take time to replace their infrastructure operating systems, kernel changes on the OS. Just plan enough time in advance. This is not a 1 week project that you're going to get done. Test, as simple as that sounds, not just the functionality, performance, integrations, customizations, even from a DBA perspective. Test out your cloning, your backups, your disaster recovery to ensure everything has worked. You may not be able to test it all, but at a minimum, pick your business critical processes required for go live and work from there. Yes. And last but not least, run stats. Check some initial performance hits, especially with customization. They may need some rework if they're not performing at the standards, but we have seen some performance hits that have had to be addressed as part of the upgrade process. And again, these lessons learned should be pretty common across all version upgrades, whether or not you're going from 11.203 or 11.204, 12.102. They're fairly common experiences, occurrences, and lessons across all the above.
Well, Geordie, thank you for that. Marissa, did we get any questions in?
We sure did. So the first question that we got was, how long have the upgrades been taking to perform?
So most of our upgrades currently that we've been running, again, dependent on client testing and availability, have typically been taking about 3 months kind of end to end. That's with, potentially moving their VMs over to new OS versions. So we've had quite a few where we've had to either take a Linux from a version 5 or 6 and port it over to a 7 platform, and then let it run for a little bit and then do the upgrades. So we've been typically saying around 3 months, give or take, has been a pretty adequate time frame.
All right, Marissa, anything else?
Yes. The next question was, what do you recommend by testing within the EBS applications when you're upgrading the DB? Regression test everything or a subset of core functionality?
Geordie, let me take that one. So I've been involved in a couple of the database upgrades previously to 19C. And one of the biggest mistakes I think a customer can make is just doing some high level, what we call litmus testing after an upgrade. I remember one distinctly when we went from 11.204 to 12.102, where testing was completed, but it wasn't full regression testing. We went live with the hopes and dreams that everything was going to work great, and on day one, create accounting wouldn't work. So as funny as that may sound, and how unrelated it could be to the database upgrade, it was a direct hit on Oracle that we had to work a bug with to get the functionality back, and something we totally didn't expect to see as a result of a database upgrade. But it really drove home the lesson that we recommend full regression testing when you do these upgrades. Okay, Marissa, anything else?
Great, thanks, Craig. Yes, as of right now, the final question that we had in, if anyone else has additional questions, go ahead and please put those into the questions box now. Our last question was, have you encountered any performance issues as a result of the upgrade, and how did you resolve those issues?
Geordie, I'll let you take that.
Thank you, Craig. We have found for a couple of our clients in addition to running statistics, which is pretty common across the board, we've encountered where you may need not a heavy recommendation, but you may need to temporarily set your optimizer features enable parameter back to your pre-upgrade versions. So example, your compatible is going to get set to 19, but your optimizer feature enables you can set to an earlier release. So in the case of this situation, we had a lot of performance issues for some of the client's customizations. So we set the optimization feature enable back down to 11.204 to resolve performance issues. But I clearly want to state this is not a long-term fix. This was a temporary resolution just to get them over the hurdle, get this so that they wanted to get through the upgrade within a set time frame, and they were willing to say, we'll go back and fix all these performance issues after the fact. So this resolved their performance problems with their customizations because it didn't take into consideration the optimization features of 19C. In addition, a couple other areas we found that you may need to adjust the pre-page SGA to false. In some cases, we've seen it to improve the overall performance capacity after startup by not reading the entire SGA into memory. So those are a couple of the ones we've come across so far.
Okay, Marissa?
All right, great. Thank you, Geordie. If there are any additional questions that you would like us to answer for you, or if you would like to have a personalized conversation with us regarding upgrading your database, you can use the contact information seen here on the screen to reach out to us. But at this time, I want to thank you all again for joining the webinar today. We appreciate your time. I hope you got a lot of value out of it, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.